Oh, man. Just when we thought that we had seen it all between Tom Aspinall and the UFC, it turns out that we didn't see anything. We didn't see anything for what's about to come. So the big news here recently is that Thomas Paul Aspinall has signed with Matchroom. Now, if you're not familiar with Matchroom, you're like, Matchroom? Like, what are we doing? Matching who? What room? This is ran by none other than Mr. Eddie Hearn. Now, who is Eddie Hearn? Well, he's the tall-looking UK fellow, right, Mr. Slim? Right, Mr. Do-It-All in the boxing world, and he decided to pull up and say, Tom, don't worry. I know you're a broken man, but I'm here to solve all your problems. I got your back, Big Tom. And Tom Aspinall said, sure, buddy. I'm all for it. Let's make this thing happen. And Eddie Hearn is not only a massive name in the boxing world and a go-getter and a savage, but he has also became Dana White's BFF over the past month. They have become so close. They have become best friends. And obviously I'm joking. I'm messing around. Listen, we thought that we had seen it with Tom in the UFC. Like, it's pretty clear that no matter what Dana says, like, I don't believe that all is hunky-dory behind the scenes between the UFC and Tom. Like, it is very clear that for a while, between the whole John Jones saga, the way that they announced Tom as the champion, Dana's like at a press conference, and he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, Tom Aspinall's the heavyweight champion. Like, wait a minute, whoa. John Jones retires, you're just going to say, yeah, Tom, yeah, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. The heavyweight champ of the UFC is a massive deal, and this dude had zero energy and zero hype behind it. Like, that whole thing was an absolute disgrace. But nonetheless, here we are, and Tom is signing with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. So, well, what does this mean? I think that the end is nearer for Tom Aspinall and the UFC's relationship. Like, this to me, this is literally Tom Aspinall saying, F you, Dana, and the UFC. You have played with me for far too long. You've punked me around. You've pushed me around. And Tom's sitting up here singing and rapping going, don't push me because I'm too close to the edge. Like that. That's literally what's going on here. Tom Aspinall has taken it on the chin. He's gotten battered to the nutsack. He's gotten his eyeballs gouged out by Cyril Gahn. He has taken so much heat for fouls that he did not commit. And Tom Aspinall is over it. He's sick of it. He's tired of the UFC not really having his back. And I know Dana White wants to sit up there, oh, he's my heavyweight champion. I'm telling you right now, I would not be shocked one bit if the big, massive announcement that we get for the White House, which is, I assume, going to be during the UFC 326 broadcast, is going to be Tom Aspinall being stripped of the heavyweight title and John Jones versus Alex Pereira for the undisputed heavyweight belt. Especially now that Tom did this. This is literally, to me, Tom Aspinall saying, F you, Dana. Literally, this is a bold F you. And I honestly think it's hilarious. And I think that this is something that is going to work out very much in Tom's favor in the long run. Now, for the short term, it's going to get dicey. It's going to get hairy. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get dicey because we've seen, and Ariel Helwani has talked about this many of times before, and he did most recently as well. The UFC does not have to play nice with Eddie Hearn and Tom Aspinall's representation. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do it whatsoever. They're liable to call Tom Aspinall and be like, we're talking to you, man. We're not dealing with this crap. And if you think that Dana White is just going to allow Eddie Hearn to come into the picture and ruffle some feathers for Tom Aspinall and the UFC and give Dana and the UFC a hard time, like, you're out of your mind. We're beating up babies out here. Like, Dana White beefing with boxing promoters is literally one of the great joys in life. If you have not seen over the years Dana White beefing with boxing promoters, it is literally one of the greatest things. It really is. Because these guys love to clap back at Dana. They are not scared. But Dana absolutely loves to clap back, and he loves to try to strong-arm these guys. And you really believe that Tom Aspinall bringing in Eddie Hearn is what going to give Tom more leverage? The UFC is just going to bend the knee and be like, oh, yes, Eddie Hearn, you're here, man. We're all of a sudden just going to back up the Briggs trucks for Tom. Like, there's nothing, in my opinion, that Eddie Hearn is going to be able to do to help Tom and the UFC navigate this. This is going to get very ugly. That's my take on it. And Tom Aspinall's got 2 fights left on his deal. And we know that Tom has been very adamant, more so his father, which it's kind of good that they're bringing in Eddie to kind of manage all this because, in my opinion, Tom's dad, Andy, has been kind of a disaster in all of this. They haven't done a great job with Tom's PR, in my opinion. They've been pretty adamant that, look, we could go box, man. We could go make a lot more money. And obviously, I agree with that. And I do believe that the UFC has not been very fair to Tom Aspinall. I've been saying that for years, since this whole thing's been going on with the John Jones saga and the way that they've handled it all. It's been wrong, man. It's flat out been wrong. You have a guy that is a sensational talent in the heavyweight division, and you're just holding things up. And John Jones, from my understanding, was like, man, I'm done, dog. And the UFC, I think, was just kind of hoping on that they could get the fight. And it never happened. So it gets stalled out. Tom Aspinall is out all this time. They announce him as the heavyweight champion in a disgraceful way, and he comes back to fight Cyril Gahn, gets gouged in the eyeballs. The fight stops, and Tom Aspinall is the one that seems to be receiving all of the criticism except for the guy that committed all of the fouls. But I do think that they should have been fully behind Tom Aspinall, and I think that Tom was expecting that, and that's not what he got, which has led to just a bunch of sourness going on here. And I think that Tom is looking back at this going, man, the UFC has not had my back. They just have not been very fair to me. And he's like, so you know what, Dana, you got beef with Eddie Hearn? I'm signing with Eddie Hearn. And I do believe that there is a little bit in this to where Eddie Hearn is kind of going, hey, man, there's a little something in this for me as well. Now, obviously, Tom Aspinall is a massive star now, especially in the UK. He's a big name. He's at least a big name that is on the rise. Eddie Hearn is now going to be, representing him, taking him under his wing, all those kinds of things. And I do believe that Eddie Hearn is going to have Tom's best interest at heart, but I think that this is setting up the long run for the fact that Tom will eventually go box and Eddie Hearn will have something to do with that. That's what I think is going on here. And I also think that this is also self-fulfilling in the way for Eddie of, well, Dana White and Zuffa Boxing, they swooped in and paid Conor Benn a boatload of money. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a casual. I'm a casual boxing fan. I know who a lot of boxers are and a lot of big names. I have never heard of Conor Benn in my life. I don't even know what he looks like. I don't even know if he's a southpaw or north. I've never seen a dang highlight of Conor Benn. And this dude's out here making, $15 million? And this has ruffled a bunch of feathers in the UFC. You got guys like Sean O'Malley, Adesanya, voicing come on, man. And I think that this is, what are the UFC fighters necessarily going to do about it is kind of my question, because the UFC kind of has them all, by the balls, so to speak, right? But to me, this is literally Tom Aspinall saying, you're not going to push me around. And what we've seen throughout the years is if you try to strong arm the UFC, you try to arm wrestle them back. Like the UFC did, they just, every time they arm wrestle, they slam you into the ground. And anytime you put up a little bit of resistance and, you're getting that back and forth action, the UFC will not let that happen. They're not going to let it happen. And if you try that, it's going to get bad. We saw this with Francis Ngannou. And why is Dana White in the UFC? It feels like they're incapable of getting along with the heavyweight champion. Have you guys noticed that? Right, Stipe Miocic, right, he kind of voiced some concerns. Then with Francis, John Jones, and I get John is difficult to deal with, which in hindsight, I'm actually kind of glad that John is a giant pain in the rear end of the UFC, the way that they've been treating the fighters. And I feel like a lot of this, especially with fighter pay, the way that this has all just kind of been aired out, it seems, since the Paramount era over the past year or so, it feels like this all is getting so much worse. And then the signing of Conor Benn just feel like it blew the door wide open on all this. But I do believe that this is the beginning of the end of Tom Aspinall in the UFC. I don't think that we see an extension. There's 2 fights left. I think Tom will fight out his deal. And if you think that this happening, that the UFC is just going to go, oh, he signed with Eddie Hearn, we're just going to, let this fly? They're not going to be offended by this. They're not going to be ticked off. Dana White is beyond pissed about this. He's beyond pissed about this because Eddie Hearn is going to be a giant thorn in Dana White and the UFC's ass. That's the reality. He is going to be a thorn that will not go away. You're going to try to pull it out, and you're like, man, this thing is really deep. I can't get it out. I can't get it away from me. He's going to be that fly that's constantly, you're just flying. You're like, get it out of here. That's going to be Eddie Hearn. And especially with the added motivation of this beef that Dana and Eddie have going on, I think it's going to work out for Eddie in the long run because I think that this is kind of his way of getting into the Aspinall good graces to where when Tom eventually, which I think will be soon, after his, these 2 fights, he's going to move on from the UFC and then he'll go into the boxing world. We heard his father very adamant about it. I think Tom obviously would be more than willing to go box, make a boatload of money. He's got a ton of name value. But we all know the UFC does not like when guys do not want to sign a new deal. A lot of the time, they will try to devalue you on the way out the door. So that is where things get interesting. And after Tom announcing that he's signing with Matchroom and going to be working with Eddie Hearn here, I expect the UFC to crash down harder than they ever have on Thomas Paul Aspinall. And I think we're in for a wild ride, man. I think we're in for a wild ride because I don't see in any way, shape, or form that this ends in a great way with the UFC. Like, I just don't see that. I don't see that. Maybe we all get shocked here. At least I feel this way. I'd be stunned if they all sit down and, sing Kumbaya and yeah, we're all just going to figure this out and we'll sing a song and dance, hold hands, dance in a circle. Woohoo, we got this thing together. I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. I think that this is the beginning of the end, and I think Tom's done with the UFC, and I think the UFC is going to be done with Tom. And I think that is, if they weren't considering stripping him of the title, which I think that they already were doing, I think that they are definitely probably going to do it now. Like, I think they're going to do it now, don't you? Don't you guys think? You got Jones and Pineda, this whole saga with Aspinall, and then Dana's going to take it personal. We know how emotional Dana gets. He's like, what? I'm beefing with this guy, and you're going to go sign with him? You want to do me like that? And again, Tom Aspinall, he doesn't owe Dana and the UFC anything. What have they done for Tom? Obviously, they've signed him. They've given him a platform and all those kinds of things. But to me, that the way that they've handled Aspinall, the lack of promotion that he had on his crazy run, I mean, going out there and starching Sergey Pavlovich and running through Volkov and all the things that he's done, like, I don't know, man. Like, Tom, obviously, I feel like he's been done dirty by the UFC, and I feel like all this stuff with Cyril Gane just kind of exposed the fan base. It exposed a lot of people, and I think Tom was really disappointed in the fact of how the UFC didn't really have his back. And that's the way that it kind of felt, right? And so, again, we don't know the conversations that are being had behind the scenes, but we could see Tom's reaction. He's like, what did I do? I'm catching strays. You know what I mean? And then Dana's kind of walking back in a way like, I didn't really say anything, but you kind of did, Dana. But at the end of the day, he should have been like, yeah, the fight stopped. He got gouged in the eyeballs. Like, we keep giving Cyril Gane title shots. I feel like that's going to come to an end because he just jeopardized this entire card. Well, not jeopardized it. He ruined it. He ruined the main event because he couldn't keep his damn hands closed. Kept extending his fingers and poked Tom in the eyeballs. And the blame should be mainly on Gane, man. It should be mainly on Cyril Gane, despite whether you think Tom's embellishing or whatever different narratives are floating around out there. Tom is the one that was fouled, and somehow this has all been spun around. And a lot of people have turned on Tom, and I feel like this is his way of kind of getting back, trying to get some get back here. Because Eddie Hearn and Dana White clearly were beating up babies. And by the way, Dana White saying that he would box Eddie Hearn, I think Eddie Hearn would piece up Dana White and pick him apart and box his ass up. I know Dana White's an OG, man, but I think Eddie Hearn, man, he's got that tall, lanky frame, man. I think Eddie Hearn would box up Dana White. I think he would, and I would actually love to see that. And I've been calling for that. I was joking around on Twitter a while ago saying for the White House card, we're going to get Dana White versus Eddie Hearn in a 3-rounder. And who knows, man? I actually was joking around, but maybe we get that. Maybe we get that someday. So, I don't know, man. I wanted to come on here and react and give my thoughts, but just because Eddie Hearn is in the corner of Tom Aspinall, the UFC can play hardball. They could sit here and go, we're not talking to him. We're not going to deal with him. He doesn't really, he got a problem with us. We got problems with him. We're not doing this. Find somebody else for us to talk to, Tom. I think they could do that. I think that they could do that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out. But I think in the long run, this is Tom looking at, okay, it might get kind of murky and hairy here for the next, until I can finish this out with the UFC, unless by some miracle, they're able to salvage all this. They're able to fix and repair and all sing Kumbaya, bring it in for a big hug. I feel like they're going to go on their separate ways. And I feel like it's going to start and stop by, I'm telling you, the White House announcement, don't be surprised if it's Jones versus Pineda for the undisputed title, and then it's going to be mayhem on social media. And you're going to see Aspinall, you're going to see his dad, everybody's going to be going crazy about this. This, to me, was a long-term plan of Tom Aspinall. A lot of it was to kind of spite how the UFC and Dana has kind of treated Tom Aspinall. And I feel like a lot of it as well is kind of preparing Tom for what's ahead, life after the UFC, a.k.a. moving on in boxing. Eddie Hearn's a big name. He's been around for forever. Him and his family have a ton of money. And Eddie Hearn is no punk. You've seen him giving it back to Dana White. He doesn't curl up in a ball. Oh, Dana White said something about me. No, Eddie Hearn goes, say that with your chest, big dog. Like, Eddie Hearn's that kind of dude. And then he talks about fighter pay, and he's going to be a gnat, man. He's going to be a fly. He's going to be a thorn in Dana and the UFC's rear end. You know that they're annoyed by this. They're pissed about it. And they already kind of, or they could say what they want about Tom. The way that they handled the Tom Aspinall situation, it's not great. It was the same thing with Ngannou, man. I was saying that about Ngannou. The way that they dealt with him, it was terrible. And that's why I'm saying, Why does it feel like the UFC and Dana White are incapable of having a solid relationship with the heavyweight champion? Is it just me? Does anybody else notice that? The most important, which should be the most important division, which I get it, it's kind of hard to be important when it's kind of stale and it's kind of the same guys at the top and it's not like a deep weight class. A lot of the guys are fat blobs that aren't very skilled. But at the top, there are a lot of skilled guys. And the heavyweight champion in the UFC is supposed to mean something. You're supposed to be the baddest man on the planet. And I don't know if it's like an insecurity of, the baddest man on the planet. I got to show them I'm Dana White. I don't know. I don't know what it is, man. But to me, I think this was a very good move from Tom Aspinall. For the short term, it's going to get hairy. It's going to get dicey. It's going to get, it feels like this whole relationship with Tom and the UFC, it feels like there was smoke coming out of the building. And we're like, it feels like there's something going on there. It feels like there might be a fire. And then you kind of look in the window and you see some flames and you're like, ooh, there's a fire. And then it's kind of, now the door's starting to go down and you're like, oh man, this fire's really getting somewhere. And now, by Tom going out here and signing with Eddie Hearn, given the beef that's kind of going on with Dana and Eddie, this feels like, there's a fire and the building is starting to burn down. That's the relationship, in my opinion, of Tom and the UFC. I don't know that they're able to repair this. Signing with a guy that Dana's beefing with, and they clearly have problems. A guy in Eddie Hearn who's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid of Dana. He's going to go, back and forth with them, verbal jousting, in the media. This, to me, is just, it's a sign of bad, it's going to be a bad end, in my opinion, for Tom and the UFC. The question is, what are the fights going to be, right? If he's got a couple deals left, are they just going to cut Tom loose? I don't know that they do that. They're going to want to try to devalue Tom. They're going to want to try to stick it to Tom and Eddie, I would imagine. So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out, man. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. So for the long term, good move for Tom Aspinall. I think that this is going to lead to him boxing and working alongside Eddie Hearn and all those kinds of things. But in terms of fixing this with the UFC, if they do actually sit back and talk with Eddie Hearn's not going to be a punk, man. He's going to stick his chest out. He's going to do what's best for his client, Tom Aspinall. And also, Eddie Hearn, this has some extra sauce in it for him as well to kind of get back at Dana White for all of this Conor Benn stuff and all the stuff that Dana has been saying in the media about Eddie Hearn. We're beating up babies. How about you hop in the ring and box Eddie Hearn? Dana White. That's what I'd like to see. Hey, man, my early prediction is I think Eddie Hearn would box up Dana White, man. The length, the range, the reach, I think Eddie Hearn would be able to box him up, man. So this is big news. This is big news. This is going to ruffle some feathers here with Dana in the UFC. I'm sure they're pissed about this. Like I said, vacant title, Jones, Pineda, wouldn't be shocked. I think they're going to do everything that they can to kind of stomp Tom Aspinall on the way out. To me, this feels like this is the end. This feels like the end. This feels like the end to me. I think the end is very near. And great for Tom for the long haul, but for the now, I think it's going to be a disaster, and I don't think the UFC is going to play nice with Aspinall making this move. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you agree with me? You think this was a good move for Tom? How do you see this playing out with the UFC, given what we've been seeing with Dana and Eddie going back and forth? It's been entertaining. I will say that. Dana beefing with boxing promoters. But at the end of the day, man, I feel like the UFC and Dana, they're kind of getting drawn out of their shadows, right? We're seeing this with them paying Dana and Zuffa paying Conor Benn and, fighters being ticked off. And, Tom Aspinall, think about it. He could go box and literally in one fight make far more than he did in his entire UFC career. So, to me, this is the end, and I'm interested to see what happens moving forward. But if you guys enjoy my content, if you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time.